Over the weekend, I was having a conversation with somebody. He runs an NGO, and he said to me they were going to release a video. They were going to make a video asking their members to donate money. And I said, that's great. Sounds credible. Sounds like a nice idea. Why would I watch it? And he said, because we want to raise money. So we want people like you, to give money. And I said, I know why you want me to watch it. But why would I watch it? And he looked at me and he said, yeah, I don't really know why you would watch it. And that's really the point, isn't it? I'm Howard Feldman. This is Synthesis TV. I happen to head up marketing and people at Synthesis, and I'm often asked to assist companies that we deal with in their branding, their marketing approach, and it always perplexes me as to how sometimes we overcomplicate things. They do say that the biggest enemy to marketing is noise. Because there's so many messages, there's so much I want to tell you about my company. I just want to tell you how fantastic I am so that you use me. But in fact, what we often forget along the way is that actually it's not about me. It's about the customer and it's about the potential customer. So what I want to do in the next few minutes, and if you listen to me, you don't need to agree with it, but if you pay attention, I believe that this can fundamentally change the way you sell and the way you market. And I'd love your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love your interaction, because this is something that I'm absolutely passionate about. And a lot of the work that a lot of this material actually comes from a book written by Donald Miller, Building a Story Brand. I'm not paid to endorse this, but if you are looking for a good book on marketing, go and have a look at this, because I think it's very, very smart. So let me tell you about the fundamentals and what is this whole concept of story branding, and how do we look at our customer versus looking at ourselves. The basic concept is as follows, that you are not the hero of your story. Your customer is the hero, or the potential customer, or your community member, or your employee. They are the hero of the story. You're not. You are the guide. And your job in all of this is to provide guidance for people along the way. Sounds confusing? Let's start right at the beginning. Almost every adventure story that you read, starting with the Bible, in fact, follows a certain pattern. And this is the pattern that it follows. The hero is living their life, his or her life, in relative complacency, and something happens to upset or to change the equilibrium of their lives. And they are asked to step up. They don't know how to do it. They have internal concerns, they've got external crises, there's normally an existential crisis as well. And whilst they're battling through this, along comes a guide that offers them assistance along the way. That changes everything. If they follow the guide, it leads to success. If they don't, unfortunately, it leads to failure. Take, let's say, one of the most well-known biblical stories, Moses. Moses is living in the palace of the pharaohs, and he is a prince. He's living a very, very happy, wealthy and complacent life, and all of a sudden one day he goes out into the streets and he sees an Egyptian taskmaster beating a slave, and he gets involved. It upsets his equilibrium. He doesn't quite know what to do, and then he comes across a burning bush. And that bush then is, and whether this is something that you believe in or not is completely irrelevant. You can either see it as a story or you can see it as something more than that. But either way, the bush is burning, and it's God who's now acting as his guide along the way. And he has to listen to the guide, and so he manages through this. And he goes through an internal crisis. How could he talk to Pharaoh? He's got a stutter. He's not an orator. The existential crisis, of course, is the fact that this whole nation has been enslaved, and he has to save them. And also the fact that he got involved now puts him at risk. So every story follows those patterns. Take the normal adventure story today. An ex-CIA agent living outside of the city in a forest with his wife and child, and all of a sudden somebody comes to tell him that there's a global crisis. A nuclear weapon is going to be discharged somewhere in New York City or whatever. I'm making this up as I go along. And he's got to get involved and defuse the bomb. He's living in complacency. He's called upon to stand up and to act. But along comes the guide who shows him what to do. The hero always has an external crisis and always has an internal one. Otherwise, it's not interesting, right? Because the external is, go and defuse the bomb. So he goes, he defuses the bomb, and that's that. But there's always an internal one. Will he get the girl? Will he, I don't know, is he good enough? What will happen to his child? If there's always an internal and an external. Okay, you with me so far? Let's continue that. Let me, in fact, take that example and make it more basic. The external problem that we face is easy to determine. So I decide that I need a new cell phone. The external problem is I need to make phone calls and I need to be able to use social media. But I can go to multiple, I've got so many choices today that'll all solve that problem. Why would I choose whatever I choose? Because that talks to me. What does iPhone talk to? Talks to status. So the external problem is solve the problem, make the phone call, and use social media. What's the internal? Well, that's what we have to talk to each person about. For iPhone users, for example, it's status. They sell status. I'll give you another example. Somebody wants to take somebody out. A young man wants to take a young woman out on a date. It's the first date. He wants to take them out for dinner. What is the problem he needs to solve externally? He needs to find a place to feed her, to feed him and to feed her, obviously. But there's so many choices. He could go to any one of thousands of restaurants, including the McDonald's and KFCs of the world, will solve the dinner problem. What's the internal problem, or what's the internal issue he's facing? He wants to create the right impression. He wants the restaurant to reflect who he is. So therefore, it becomes about an internal driver, not an external driver. Okay? The external drivers are very, very simple to solve. Somebody wants to sell software, great. There's probably multiple options that they've got. That's the external. What is the internal driver? Well, that each company's got to look at. But what we've done here is we've shifted it from the company being the hero to the person. I'll give you another example, and they use that in this book, which is a very simple one. Let's just say, well, I'm going to adapt it to another audience, but let's just say somebody wants to hitchhike from Johannesburg down to Cape Town. And there's about 5 or 6 guys that are driving down. It's quite a lonely drive. So one of them would really enjoy his company. And the first car pulls up and says, come with me. Let me tell you about how I got my license. I started off in 1987 getting my learner's license, and he tells the story of how he got to be where he is today. The next person comes up and says, let me tell you about my driving philosophy, because I've spent a lot of time on this. And the third one comes and talks about, I don't know, the music that he's going to play. The final guy comes along and says, where are you going? And he says, Cape Town. And he says, that's where I'm going. Let me give you a ride. And the whole point there is the person who wanted a lift to Cape Town needed to know who was going to Cape Town first and foremost. He didn't need to know about the ethos of the driver. If he wants to, that can come later. If he's now deciding between 4 and 5 people and they're all going in the same direction. But the first person that says to him, I'm going to Cape Town, that's the one he's now most interested in. Why? Because that driver has spoken to him about his destination. It's all about, and in fact, there are multiple examples. I mean, we obviously know the story of Kodak very, very well. What happened to Kodak? Who were Kodak? Kodak were the guardians, really, of our 20th century memories. Because They provided the hardware, they provided the paper, the chemicals needed, and so they became the reference point for our memories. But along comes one of the Kodak employees, and he actually invents a digital camera. Kodak says, no, this is not a good idea for us because this is not our business. So let's just put that aside. But then others start to do the same. And then Kodak actually starts doing some research on it. And they look at this and they say, well, there's good news and there's bad news in this. The good news is there's 10 years before digital cameras are going to be adopted fully. The bad news is that it's going to be happening. So Kodak effectively now know they've got 10 years to start producing digital cameras. And what do? Nothing. They actually double down on the fact. They say, who are we? We do chemicals, we do paper, we do film. That's who we are. And so they ignore the customer, they ignore the hero of the story. They don't ask them where they're going, i.e. Cape Town. And what do is they continue on their journey. And what happens to Kodak? Well, we all know what happens to Kodak. So that's the fundamental. The fundamental question is, who is your customer? And what is it that they want? I'm going to take you through a formula that'll enable you to answer these questions very, very simply. Well, they're not simple answers because I would hope that you would debate them as you go through them. And the formula is as follows, and it's based on the script that we spoke about in all movies and stories. It's a hero has a problem. So he's living his life and he has a problem. So the hero has a problem. He meets a guide, that's point number 3, who offers him a solution, who calls him to action, and in that way he succeeds or he fails. So these are the 7 points now that we want to look at. The first question is, who is our hero? And every customer, every community, every charity, every employer has got to look at it. And the beautiful thing about this approach is you can look at it in all ways. So as an employer, you could say, all right, our people are our heroes. What is it that they want? What's the external problem I'm solving? What's the internal problem? And we'll come back to that in a minute. But let's start at the beginning. Take, I don't know, a restaurant's clientele. Their hero is their customer. They've now maybe got a problem. They're going on this date, if we use that. But obviously, it's a lot more complex than that. What is the problem that they are facing? What is the external and what is the internal? The external should be relatively quick. We should be able to say, right, it's, I don't know, a financial institution who are looking for software, right? That's what they need to become more efficient, and they need to continue moving with the times. That's the easy part. But if you take the internal driver, let's say at a bank, at a financial institution who wants to buy software, what drives them? Is it an individual who wants to be promoted? Is it an individual person or a team who believes passionately in innovation and moving this company forward? What is that internal driver? Figure that out, and the sale is very, very different and very much easier, because then we're talking to what the customer actually wants, where they are going. So there's the external and the internal. Our hero has a problem. What is his problem? Internal and external. He meets a guide. We the guide. But who are we in this? How do we define ourselves? Are we a software company? Are we a consulting company? If you're a manufacturer, for example, is it about your ability to manufacture, or is it about the knowledge and the advice and the safety and the comfort that you could give that person? What is it? Who are you in this? So what is the guide, and what are you asking them? What is the solution that you are offering them? External and internal. Figure that out, and it becomes a different story. Then it's got to be the call to action. And this has got to be very, very simple. One of the biggest enemies of marketing, yes, what do you think it is? Noise. It's noise. Because there are so many messages. There's so much you want to tell us, and there's so much you need me to know. No, stop it with that. Stop the noise. Stop the noise. Just tell me very simply that you're going to Cape Town. The rest will follow. Lose the noise. And that's a huge, huge thing, because companies, marketers, we all do. We just want to, we've got so much to tell you. Just listen to us. But why would you? Going back to my conversation on the weekend, why would I watch that video that's asking me to raise, to donate money? There's got to be a driver. There's got to be a reason that I would watch that. I'm your hero. I'm your customer. You are the guide. What are you offering me to make me engage with you? Once I'm engaged, it's a very different ballgame. I'm there. Then we can have those discussions around where you got your license and what music you're playing along the way. But before that, we need a simple message. So it's actually quite interesting, because we ran a hackathon a few weeks ago, and we needed to figure out, so what is a hackathon if you don't know? It's basically teams get together and to solve problems. And it's an internal company initiative. It's great for team building. Developers love doing that. We had 15 teams trying to solve different problems, competing against each other. Absolutely stunning. But we wanted to figure out a theme. And the theme that we came up with, and the theme that we eventually worked with, was it's all about the chemistry. Why? Because people working together is about the chemistry. We made it a little bit of a science fair kind of a vibe to add to it. We spoke about the chemistry between us and our customers, because really it is all about the human connection. And that was the theme that we stuck to throughout. If it was externally focused, maybe it would be a little bit different. But the simplicity of it's all about the chemistry gave everybody a clear view of what this was about, and what was important, and what our values were along the way. And that works. Too much noise, too many words, and nobody looks, nobody reads it. I don't even know how long I've been talking for here, but I'm well aware that I've got a limited amount of time. Otherwise, you're going to lose interest unless I'm really captivating, which I happen to think I am, because I think this is genius stuff. It's not my own. So I'm just presenting it to you in a way that I'm hoping that you can consume it, because this is about you as well. This is about you as the customer in this way, which is a viewer. My whole point here is to show you, flip it around. You aren't the hero. What was that song? Somebody sang it. I remember my late father singing it. He used to play guitar very, very badly. He was a terrible musician, but he wasn't a musician actually, but he used to play the guitar. Yesterday's hero, that's all that I'm going to be if we don't get together, make a new start. I don't even know who sang that. Either way, it's yesterday's hero. You are not a hero. If you're going to try and be a hero in your business, in your organization, in any aspect, if you think you are the hero, you will be yesterday's hero, because your customer is your hero. It's all about them. Keep asking yourself the question, why would they care? They don't care about how you got your license. They don't care about the music you play unless you've agreed on the fundamentals. And that's the shift that I wanted to share with you today. It is so important and so valuable. Try it and let me know how it's going. Share this if you think it's valuable. I think it is. I think it can really fundamentally change the way that you communicate with your heroes. I'm Howard Feldman. I head up marketing and people at Synthesis Software Technologies. Be in touch.